Hey, what's up, guys? But you never thought you'd see us again. This is Ed. Obviously, I'm Ed. Welcome back to vinylalbumcovers.com's The Front. Obviously, that's Dre. And sorry we've been missing for so long, but stuff.
Yeah,
Um, that's about as complicated as it get. We're busy
yeah,
people. So we're
that
all
happens.
busy, of course.
Yeah,
So it just kind of got the better of us for a little while, but we're back and we'll try to be more consistent. Um, try like really we will try. That's not that those aren't empty words. But we kind of came up with it, or Dre actually came up with a really good idea, and so we're going to talk about that now. We're going to talk about versus battles that haven't been yet, or versus battles that can never be. So we're kind of going to hit both of them up, and we'll see where it takes us. So this is going to be fun. I
yeah.
have no idea what he's going to say. I have no clue, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to make you start, bro. Go for it. What's the first one you got?
All right. Well, like I said, I'm gonna try to avoid the super obvious. So I'm not gonna do Michael versus Prince or Pac versus Biggie or Whitney versus Mariah. I'm gonna try to avoid those. Those are obviously that everybody would have loved to have seen those, but I'm gonna try to stay clear from that. So my first,
Oh,
um,
like
I'm gonna go with.
if you said them, I wouldn't be mad. I mean, can you? Oh my
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Whitney and
obviously,
Mariah though, like
yeah, those are all three of those are obvious, but I'm gonna try to be a little bit more outside the box. So my
okay.
first is gonna be James Brown versus Curtis Mayfield. Uh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
oh
mean,
my
talk
god.
about the blackness of black when it comes to like soul music and R&B. They
Oh,
have plenty of civil rights anthems. Very soulful. They've both been sampled to death by countless of artists that have come after them. To this day, they're still being sampled. Two of just like the greatest minds, and not just R&B or funk or soul, but just in music, his just regardless of genre. Um, James Brown, they've both been in the game since like I want to say the mid 50s, I believe. I know Curtis Mayfield and Jerry Butler started the Impressions.
yeah.
Um, Brown was just getting started, I think the same year, 1956. Please, please, please. Um, and the Curtis kind of started a little bit differently. With Curtis being with the Impressions, but that produced so many great records, so many great civil rights, records, anthems and stuff like People Get Ready, Keep on Pushing. You can even throw, like I say, you can throw some of those into the battle, some of the stuff with the Impressions because it's iconic. And then of course there's Superfly. That is like probably the iconic soundtrack ever.
Yeah.
Pusher, Superfly itself, Freddie's Dead, just a lot of really really good stuff there. And then James Brown, I probably consider him the goat of like just all artists. Um, I don't even like where do you even begin with James Brown? It's just endless music, man. Yeah, just a lot of stuff. So that would probably be the first battle that I would probably go with. Um, who who would win? Man,
Oh, come on now.
yeah,
I
I,
don't know either. There is, I don't know. There's no way. There would be no winner. Because they both kind of, it's interesting because I mean,
yeah,
like in their own way, they created subgenres.
right,
I mean,
right,
obviously, James Brown has been sampled to death, so his
yeah,
influence has continued. If there
yeah,
is no James Brown, there is no Michael Jackson, and there is no Prince, and there
right.
is no one else there, which then means that there is no Usher, there is
Mm-hmm.
no Chris
Bobby Brown,
Brown,
yeah, yeah,
there's no Genuine,
right,
there's no Trey Songs,
right.
there's no Tyrese. Like
Mhm.
maybe okay, maybe he might exist, but the
Yeah,
others absolutely don't. I mean,
yeah, because
James
they
Brown
basically
was
borrowed from him, or they might have borrowed from somebody else, but whoever they borrowed from James Brown.
it all started there. Yeah,
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. Like it all begins there. And then I mean, Curtis Mayfield wasn't just an artist; he was also a record label executive. He had the Curtom record label for a number of years back in the
oh yeah,
'70s.
and he wrote so many hits for other artists too. He wrote stuff for who was the Ratchet Brothers. He even wrote stuff for them. Like
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, just a
And
lot of
he's also responsible for
what is that? Oh, that's the artwork. What is that?
Donny Hathaway.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like he just
Not by himself, but he's one of the people. He's the Donny Hathaway recorded on Curtom first in duet with Margie Josephs. He recorded with her first.
that's I think I knew that. I think,
Just Another Reason. What was the other one? I Thank You. A couple of them.
yeah,
I'm not sure that it was Margie Joseph's. My memory's fading,
yeah,
but he literally recorded for that label first.
yeah,
He arranged prior, but too much Donnie. Back to Curtis, but he
yeah,
started out on Curtom Records. That's where he started. So Curtis Mayfield was also a very reputable record company executive, and probably one of the first, if not the first, African American record label executives back then.
yeah. I mean, you know, you got like, you know, just Hell Below was just a beautifully written piece. You know, Get Down, Future Shock. It just goes on and on with him, man. I can't think of some of them off the top of my head. I don't know why I'm going blank here, but
Yeah, because we're recording. That's why.
yeah, you know, there was a song that Wale sampled. I didn't want to say like 10 years ago called "My Way" that heavily samples some of Curtis Mayfield song. I
He's been
recognize.
sampled to death. Yeah, he
You know
really
what I'm talking
has.
about?
Yeah, I do. I can't remember the name of it, but he's been sampled to death.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, it's like, you know, and I didn't realize until like years later when I really started to get, you know, more and more, you know, into like, you know, old school music, that I was like, man, I recognize that. That's from, oh,
Freddie's
Nas.
Dead. Like, there's so many.
Yeah,
We'd be here all day. There's so many.
yeah, and you know,
Whole
James.
careers have come from him.
Right, right. And then, you know, like you said, with James Brown just being so highly influential and just, you know, hit on top of hit, man, you know, in the 60s, you know, This Is a Man's World, and, you know, just,
Yeah.
you know, Ain't That the Groove? There's just, yeah, I can't say enough
Ants
about
in My Pants. There's a
yeah,
bunch.
yeah,
Again, we'd be here all night. Like, there's so
yeah,
many. And
yeah,
I'm
he's
thinking, you mentioned, who would win. And unless I'm just missing it, and no shade to Curtis Mayfield ever, by the way,
yeah.
like never. He's
Mhm.
he's a legend. But nobody, I can't recall anybody like actively trying to be him. And there were plenty of James Brown imitators. So maybe just on that front, maybe we give the edge to James. Maybe.
Yeah, and I want to say he probably did have more hits, at least solo. I don't know what it would look like if you combined, you know, Curtis's stuff with the impressions and the solo stuff, which is still really, really impressive.
Oh
You
yeah.
just throwing the solo stuff in there, but like if they're both on stage and they're both performing a song and, you know, they go back and forth, who outperforms James Brown on the big stage? You
In
know,
terms of entertainment value, he may be the best entertainer who's ever lived,
right? You know,
frankly.
like let him go up there and sing, you know, Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, and, you know, Hot Pants, or whatever. Even the stuff with the JBs, man, it's just like,
Oh yeah, definitely with the JBs. That was his rhythm section. Like that was the rhythm section. I'm not sure there's ever been a better one.
yeah, the Payback,
Yes.
yeah. Then of course, like you said, like Mayfield, he does have a lot of, you know, songs that deal with like the inner city. Like, he had a song about heroin. I forgot the name of the song. I know the
I'm Black and I'm Proud. There was
well,
that
that, yeah,
one.
that's an anthem right there.
I
Definitely,
mean,
yeah. But here's another song that talks about heroin. It's not one of his more popular songs, but it's one of my favorite James Brown songs. But he's, yeah, yeah, I'd have to give the edge to James Brown as well, just like you said, just for the entertainment aspect of it and the performance aspect of it too. Like, they're just, you know, Curtis Mayfield, like I said, prolific as a songwriter as he was, you know, he's nobody has stage presence like James Brown. No, nobody can do it like him.
yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, the truth is, if that Versus were a thing, we would enjoy it. Like
Oh
we
yeah,
would win. The real winner would be those of us who got to watch it. Like
exactly,
we are the
exactly,
winners.
exactly. Yeah,
That would be so much fun. Man, if that could be a thing.
yeah, yeah,
So I was thinking of for my first pick. This may be a little obvious. I know it's like
yeah.
that sometimes, but man, this would be fun. Can you imagine Stevie Wonder and Donny Hathaway sitting down together for a versus? Mind blowing.
That would
I
be
mean,
really good.
go ahead, please. You're
Yeah,
about to say something.
Stevie is my favorite artist of all time.
Yeah.
But if I could sing like anybody, it would be Donnie.
Bro, I mean, Stevie felt the same way. Listen to
Yeah,
Talking Book Forward. Where do you think
yeah,
if you notice, and Stevie's a great singer, no shade, again, no
right,
shade ever.
right.
But if you notice from Talking Book Forward, his voice changed.
Hmm.
It became heavier, his vibrato changed, the
Right.
way he pitched notes changed. And do you know why? Because he was listening to Donny Hathaway.
Yeah.
That's what did it. His voice was forever different. I mean, if you listen to something like, You Are the Sunshine of My Life, which got played to death, it's a standard.
And you know what's
But
funny about
that
that
is,
song?
go ahead.
You mentioned that for some reason for the longest time I thought Donnie and Roberta Flack were on that song. I don't know why I thought that, but
Right, because of it. Yeah, got it. I
like,
can
who was
see
that
why you
singing with
might.
him? Who was on that song? I don't recall who was on it, but I thought that was Donnie and Roberta for the longest time.
It was Jim Gilstrap opens it,
Okay.
and then because I'm getting old, I can't remember who the female is. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Dang it! I hate it when I can't think of things. Don't get old. If you're not old, just don't get old. Because I've known it forever, and now right when we're recording, I can't think of it. And if you think I'm cheating, you are correct. Because we need to know this.
Oh, I'm gonna cheat too, man, because there's so many songs to remember. I mean, you're just not gonna be able to remember them all.
But I knew it like from off the top of my head forever. Lanny Groves. That's who it
Okay.
is. I feel so much better.
I don't even know who that
And
is.
of course,
I never
Gloria
even heard of
Barley's
her.
involved with the backgrounds as well. So,
Yeah.
but it's just, yeah, I could see, I guess I could see how you could think that. But
Yeah.
just listening to his vocal, and the song itself is ridiculous. Of course, we all know that. It's just, who writes that way? My gosh. But whatever. I mean, if you listen to his vocal, it's very Donny Hathaway.
Yeah.
Which is good. No complaints. Love it.
Right.
And his
Yeah,
voice has forever changed after that, because he was listening to Donny Hathaway. So now, granted, to be fair, there's less Donny material to choose from.
right.
But man, like quality over quantity, really.
Donnie's
I mean,
that
if
guy.
you
Yeah.
look at it, I mean, I would. This is going to sound like sacrilege, maybe. I don't know, but I would. For me, like Donnie's originals. I mean, if you think of like "Someday We'll All Be Free," which is the greatest song ever written, or like "Take a Love Song,"
Right.
which is on the Donny Hathaway record, "The Slums," "The Ghetto,"
Love, love, love.
you love. He didn't write that. I'm just thinking in terms
Okay.
of
Stuff,
like
stuff he
that was
wrote.
J.R.
Okay.
Bailey, but it's a
Okay.
great song. I love that song, but it just isn't his.
Yeah.
Or like Valdez in the Country. If you look at, if you stack up the Donny Hathaway originals, few of them though there are, I think he stacks up. I really do, because it's just because of how good they are, how adventurous they are. I mean, how many songs do we hear? How many R&B tunes with a trumpet solo in it?
Right.
It doesn't happen very often, and that use strings is in the way that Donny uses strings. Just the compositional nature of the tunes, and though there are few of them, it just, he absolutely stands up. Just those few tunes and the others that he wrote, just those few tunes, I think they stack up. I really do. I've always felt that way.
I was trying to. Donnie actually came to my mind when we decided to do this a while ago, and I was trying to think of an artist that I can pit him against that had that was in that time frame that kind of had his same kind of his catalog, because Stevie has just such an incredible, his catalog is so deep, one of the deepest, and so I actually have Steve on my list too, but it's against somebody else though, but he's on my list though. But yeah, because Stevie goes back to what, the early 60s, Fingertips, all the way through, when was his last hit? Probably like in the mid 90s, his last big hit or something like that.
Oh, his last big hit? Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, the last hit I remember him having was For Your Love.
I'm trying to think. I'm gonna cheat too myself. I'm trying to think of this.
Because I think that was like 2004, I think, For Your Love. I think that's what it was.
95.
No, it wasn't. It was 1995. It was.
Yeah, that's the song I was thinking about. Yeah, that was the song that I was thinking. I think that's the last song of his that really. I mean, he's been doing music. He's still doing. He put out the album last year, actually, but that was the last song that he did that actually charted well and actually got some radio play.
Yeah, that was the last song of his that I heard and went, I have to have that. And I remember I heard it come on the radios on PGC around here in DC.
Yeah.
And literally right after it finished, literally the moment it finished, it was the middle of the afternoon. I got in my car and took off to Tower Records and found the single and bought it. Like the moment I heard it, that was like that song was like fire. I mean, the melody is just insane. He still sounds great. He still sounds good now, but he sounded great then. And I mean, the chord changes are just ridiculous. It's just, for me, that's the last great Stevie song.
Yeah, I mean that was a while ago, but like you said, that's what 4 decades right there of music where
Still,
it's just a basis.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you know,
nothing to be ashamed of. Like,
right. And you can't forget about his songwriting credits either. He's wrote for Shaka Khan. Tell me something good. That was him.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, his catalog. He's yeah. Like I said, that's my personal favorite of all time. Like he's
he
man.
produced for Minnie Riperton,
Yeah, yeah,
like, and wrote for her
yeah.
too. He's written for most people. And excuse me, if he hasn't written for you, then you've covered his stuff.
Right. Like we talked about the intro song, "Ribbon in the Sky."
Yeah,
Just
yeah, the best cover of any Stevie song ever in life.
yeah. He's got what for once in your life. He's got like
For Once in My Life was then done by he didn't write it, but
okay.
still, I mean, he has one of the definitive versions of it. I think the Temptations version for me is the better of the two because I just
Yeah,
prefer it as a ballad.
yeah,
But there are those two. There are others, but who
yeah.
cares? There's just those two.
Yeah, but like you see, like his catalog is just so
And
deep.
then Golden Lady,
That was
which Golden Lady was the precursor to Love on Top. That's how we
okay.
get to Love on Top because of its modulations.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
goes through four of them before it ends, which shows not only his vocal prowess, but it also shows his way with a melody and chord
Mhm.
changes. And if you don't have that, you don't have Love on Top by Beyonce. That's how you get there.
You're right. Yeah, Stevie was pretty. He was very very versatile. I can't even speak right now.
Versatile, is it?
Yeah, versatile. Yeah, he was
I've
very
done that twice tonight.
yeah. Like you just superstition, higher ground.
Yeah.
Love with the city, and then he's doing a song in the '80s called I just called to tell you that I love you. I mean, sounds completely different than the
Which
stuff
I
he.
can't stand. It's so much no. I just
Well,
can't, bro.
it's a pop record, but that just shows his versatility, though. I mean, the song charted in like number one in like 10 different countries, though.
It did extremely well. It's a
Yeah,
nice little pop song, but I think it's just that it's just been played to death. I mean, you were
yeah.
around when it was out. Like, it
I
just,
was I was just born, but I've heard it, numerous times over the years.
gosh, I'm old. But
Yeah,
I remember it being played to death, and it was just like, enough already. Like,
yeah. And then I remember when I was, um, my mom tells me this story all the time. When I was like, I think I was 2 or 3, I was sick and I was crying and coughing up mucus and stuff like that. And then Isn't She Lovely came on the radio, and my mom and dad told me that I completely stopped crying, and I was like,
mm-hmm.
or kind of trying to sing. I couldn't really speak at the time. I was only 2, but and yeah, my mom told me that she always tells me that story. I really reminisce about stuff. She always tells me that story, and that's one of my favorite songs ever too. Just because even when I was old enough to remember, when I was like 4 or 5, I always did love that song. So yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree. And then if you go back to Donnie, I mean, obviously, you've got the ones that I mentioned. You've got Someday We'll All Be Free, but you've got
right,
Valdez in the Country, which I mentioned. And even if he didn't write it, I
hmm
mean, the songs that he did are his.
yeah,
It would have been foolish after he did a song to come in behind it. And if you did, I mean, think of it this way, like with A
hmm
Song for You, for instance, which was written by Leon Russell.
hmm
Um, that's the version we remember, and any other cover of it, with the exception of Carpenter's, who kind of did their own thing with it, which I admire. But when
hmm
people cover that tune, they don't cover Carpenter's version of it, or even Leon's own version.
And I've heard Leon's version, and I was like, it's not your song no more, bro. It was your song, but it's not your song no more.
Oh, and he was well aware of that. He knew that it was over and that it belonged to somebody else. And frankly, if he didn't write it, it isn't out there. So there's also that. But
Yeah,
from here on out, after Donnie did it, every other version covers that with that
right.
descending thing at the very beginning. They all do it because
The
his
piano,
version,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, his version is the definitive version. That's what they're all covering.
And that's such a
Um,
powerful song, man. Oh my goodness, it's just bone chilling. It's
it
one of the
is.
you hear, and it just makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Like it's so powerful. It's so dark, and it's so depressing, but it's just like wow, you're just blown away.
It's very sad. I mean, it's
Yeah,
essentially about any musician that's
right.
been at their craft for a long time. Because I mean, the line that really gets me is, "Listen to the melody, because my love is in there hiding."
Yeah,
It's like this man is incapable of traditional expression, so he has to
right.
express it in a song, and that's tragic. That's sad.
And you're right though, because like most artists, musicians, they don't have a good home life, or it's not the most stable home life because they're on the road, and unfortunately, most of the time, they succumb to temptation or other vices, drugs, or whatever it may be, but it happens, you know.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, and my father's a musician too, and has been for many many years. But what I find with him is that he started playing when he was like 4.
Hmm.
He started playing piano when he was 4, and that was how he learned to express himself. He did it through keys. He didn't do it the way that you and I do it. So
Right,
as a result, he never learned interpersonal skill.
right.
But when it came to having conversations with people, he could do it, but it was all very surface. He didn't really know how to communicate in a traditional sense. And it's only now at the age of 71 that he's finally figuring out how that works.
Right.
But for many many decades he just didn't know how, and that this song gives voice to that. Like that's
Hmm.
really what it is. I heard it, and the first person I thought of was my father. My father loves, he does, but he doesn't know how to express it. He has to
Right.
do it in song,
Right.
and that's what that song is about. It's incredibly tragic. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's very bittersweet to listen to
Yeah.
it,
And Donnie's voice just captures it beautifully. Like nobody else could sing that song. It was for him.
because it was him.
Yeah, Leon wrote it, but it was for Donnie though.
Yeah, yeah. No, that song was absolutely, that was Donnie in a nutshell, because he'd been
Hmm.
playing since he was a very, very young boy,
Right.
really, as little Donnie Pitts. That was him. He didn't
Yeah.
he didn't learn basic human interaction because he didn't need it. There
Hmm.
was no point. Everybody wanted to play, so that was his story to
Yeah.
tell. So it's
And
just,
we can't forget about his stuff with Roberta. The closer I get to you,
see,
where is the love? But here's my favorite duet though is actually a Donnie and Roberta song. Be Real Black for me. That's probably my
yeah.
favorite. That's my favorite right there.
Okay,
But
now we're on the same page. But okay, I feel as if I need to say this.
right.
So, generally speaking, when
Hmm.
people think of, I'm not putting on my cape, but I have to say this. This is my little rant, right? So, generally, the sad thing is you have a supremely talented singer,
Hmm.
musician, producer, songwriter named
Hmm.
Donny Hathaway, and you know what
Right.
most people focus on? They
What's that?
focus on the duets.
Hmm.
The duets that they're focusing on really aren't that good. I
I
mean,
like them. I think.
where
Oh, I mean, I like
where
them.
where is the love is fine. It's a
Right.
pop song. It's fine, but it doesn't make any sense as a duet. It wasn't written that way. It's odd as a duet. Lyrically, it makes no sense as a duet. It just shouldn't have been a duet. It sounds good because Donny Hathaway is a professional, and it
Right.
sounds good because Roberta is a professional. But as a duet, not really. It doesn't make any sense. If you go back and listen to the lyric, it makes no sense that it should be a duet. It doesn't fit. Then you've got, I'm not done. Then you've got, then you've got The Closer I Get to You,
Right.
which I love as a song. I'm not
Hmm.
saying that I don't love it as a song. I think it's extremely well written, but you have to remember that Donnie was incredibly sick when he recorded it. He wasn't
Hmm.
well. And if you
Yeah.
listen to the vocal, you know it.
It didn't come out until after he passed, or it came out the year after he passed, or sometime
No,
like
he was alive
was he still
because
alive?
this
Was
was
it 79 or 80? 'Cause I
1978.
thought it came out
It
in
was
70.
on her Blue Lights in the Basement album.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was 78. For some reason I keep thinking 80, but okay.
Yeah, no, I know what you're thinking of, and I'm going to get there. But
Right.
please allow me to get this off my.
Yeah.
You can talk. I'm not saying shut up or
No, no, you
anything.
go ahead, man. Go do what you
No,
do.
but it's just so. But that song, he wasn't well, and I think it's a
Hmm.
real testament to the fact that he was still able to feel so deeply and able to sing so soulfully that even in spite of that,
Right.
that the thing picked up a Grammy because it shouldn't have. But I mean, he recorded, just for those who don't know, he recorded his part away from Roberta. They were not together because he wasn't well enough for them to be together.
Oh,
She
okay.
recorded her part in I believe it was Media Sound in New York, I think. And then
Hmm.
he recorded his part in a studio in Chicago. So they weren't even together. She sang with a stand-in, and then the track got sent to him, and then he added his vocal.
So they never performed that song together then.
I'm not aware that it ever got performed with
Man,
the
that's
two of them
unfortunate.
together. Maybe it
That's
did. I don't know. But I mean, if you listen to him, he doesn't sound amazing on it. He sounds fine, but it's
Mhm.
not, it's certainly not his best vocal. I mean, it ain't love, love, love or anything like that. It's
Yeah, right.
fine, but if you listen to him, it sounds very muted. And there are reasons for that. He wasn't okay.
Hmm.
And then it gets worse. Then you end up with the Roberta Flack and Donny Hathaway record, which did come out in 1980, which is what you're thinking of. You end up
Hmm.
with things like Back Together Again, which is useless.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't. That's the one I really didn't care for too much. That
It's
one, it was trying to be like it wasn't a fast melody, but it was kind of, I don't know, like it just, I don't know. It didn't really work for me that well.
wretched. It's absolutely terrible. But
Everything,
the
yeah.
reason that it's terrible is because it's unfinished. If you listen to the structure of the
Mhm,
tune, Donnie comes in on the first verse. First of all, it's badly recorded. The vocal is overdriven and he doesn't sound right.
mhm,
I don't, and that's because they didn't get another shot at it. It just
mhm.
circumstances were what they were. But the thing should have stayed on the cutting room floor. She doesn't sound good on it either, because Roberta, at the end of the day, is a pop singer. She's not really an R&B singer at all.
No, I thought her voice always complimented Donnie's. I thought she always complimented him well, but yeah, she doesn't have the strongest voice though.
Well, see, okay, in my honest opinion, I just think it's a pop voice.
Like
It
like
is
like Diana
one of the
Ross,
best pop voices that has ever sung, to be
right?
fair, but it's a pop voice. It's not an R&B voice. He has an R&B voice.
Man, does he
And they
ever?
just, whenever she's forced to do runs to keep up with him, especially on
Mhm,
that song in the chorus, she
right.
can't keep up. She's trying to, but she can't. They made it work, but it just barely works. And then if you listen to the B section of the tune, love will last forever, that part, right?
Yeah.
If you listen to the first time he sings it and the second
Mhm.
time he sings it, it's actually a cut and paste job. He only sang it once. He didn't
Oh,
sing
okay, I
it a
never knew
second
that.
time, and neither did she. So, and at the end of that, there's this very long vamp that goes on, and then Luther and his background vocalists come in and finish the tune.
Okay.
The tune isn't finished. It's an unfinished tune, because if you saw the Unsung on TV1, you know this to be true. When they were in the middle of recording the tune, he cracked. He lost it. He had neurological problems and he lost it. He became extremely paranoid and couldn't finish the tune, and it was never finished. So they had to go in and, make lemonade from lemons. Basically, is
Yeah.
what happened. So the song's unfinished, and it sounds like it. It should have stayed on the cutting room floor. What's the other one? You Are My Heaven, I Love Dearly.
Mhm.
But that's heavily augmented by another female background singer covering for the things that Roberta simply can't do.
Mm.
And it sounds great. And frankly, her lead in the second verse is fine too. It's just that, and I can't remember the name of the female who sings background on that tune, but she's phenomenal. And she does the forceful background stuff
Okay.
with Donnie. And it sounds excellent. No shade. Like it's a
Yeah.
great tune. And he makes it work. That was given to us by Stevie Wonder. That's why I was trying to get there.
Yeah.
But it just, that works. But the other duets that people think of, for me, they're pretty underwhelming, and they're not as good as his solo stuff.
Oh
Nobody
yeah,
thinks,
obviously not. Yeah, because Donnie's solo stuff is just so powerful and so
but nobody thinks of it. You're going to think of it because you love music like I do. But
right.
so many people, so many of the casual listeners, and he
Mhm.
knew that this was the case and he hated it.
Well,
He,
that's the thing though. Donnie wasn't really a crossover. Like, okay, he wasn't a pop artist, but he also wasn't a mainstream artist. That wasn't really him. Like his stuff never really
no,
did
yeah,
that.
I agree.
Like unless you were an R&B fan during those times, you probably weren't going to know who Donnie was anyway. You know what I mean? He was basically like a, I don't know like maybe like a Anthony Hamilton in the fact that he's a
That's a good comparison.
but he's not a
Or like
mainstream.
Dwelly. Like,
Yeah, great. Yeah,
that's a good
like you said,
comparison. I like that.
if you don't really listen to R&B, like if you're just more of like a casual R&B listener, you're not going to really know who they are. You know what I mean?
Right. Plus, I mean,
That's kind of what Donnie was.
he was
Yeah,
never the kind that was going to do a bunch of like radio station promo. That wasn't
right.
him. He would
Exactly.
do interviews, but he didn't do very many,
Right.
because he couldn't. It was just it was a neurological. He just couldn't do that.
Yeah. And
That
then
wasn't his
Stevie, he
bag.
was the opposite of that. He was R&B, he could be pop, he was pop, he was mainstream R&B or whatever it needed to be. I mean, pretty much since Fingertips came out when they were calling him Little Stevie Wonder, he was all over
He
the
was
chart.
he was pop at the very beginning. I mean, Yester Me, Yester You, Yesterday is garbage, but it's good pop
Yeah.
garbage, and it
Yeah.
worked. I
Yeah.
hate the song, but
Well,
whatever.
yeah,
And
if you want peak Stevie, you got to go to the 70s. That's peak Stevie Wonder. The stuff that
yeah,
he was more on the pop side, but
it's not the Motown Factory stuff that they were throwing at him. It's the stuff that he did when he was finally on his own. Thank you, Marvin Gaye, for making that possible, by the
yeah,
way.
because well, that's the thing. In the 60s, Barry Gordy ran a really tight ship, and rightfully so, because he had to make sure that his artists were accepted by everybody, and then,
Yeah.
obviously these stuff changes, times change, R&B changes, and so obviously he had to let the reins go a little bit, like you said with Marvin. You know, yeah,
But I mean, if you get back to like, I agree with you completely. Like,
right,
investigation of Stevie Wonder should acknowledge that that stuff happened, and it wasn't all terrible,
yeah,
but it only gets good when
right,
he's on his own, doing his own thing, playing by his own rules, which is exactly what Donnie did. They
hmm,
both kind of ran parallel there for a minute in the sense that they were both using an outside producer,
he's in my life. Yeah, yeah,
but that outside producer didn't get
hmm,
in the way, like Arif Martin for Donny Hathaway, and
hmm,
then Robert Margouleff and a couple of other guys, Fishbach, and
right,
I'm an idiot, but whatever. But I can't. My brain's not doing it. But yeah, so there were outside producers that were technically facilitating things,
hmm,
but the music was essentially all Donny Hathaway with a little intervention from Arif on a couple of things because
right,
Donny wanted him to arrange a couple of things. But other
right,
than that, they remained true to their vision from
hmm,
that point forward until Donny just broke and couldn't do it anymore.
right.
But if you're looking at those two careers for that period of time moving side by side, I mean, imagine like there was a period in time, and I would love to have been old enough to appreciate it at that point, where
Hmm.
they were running parallel with each other.
Early 70s. Yeah,
Can you imagine like what it would have been
right.
like to live through that? I would have been in
Yeah.
heaven, like for real.
And I always say, I tell anybody who will listen, the 70s was the peak of R&B, the absolute peak of R&B. I wasn't even born
Yeah, I
then,
mean,
but
I see why you say it. Yeah,
it
I
really
get
is.
it. In terms of like who would win that, if you've got them running side by side, and I mean, I know we're doing a lot of supposing here because Donnie's
Yeah.
career was short and
Mhm.
there's a lot more stuff. And I mean, just Songs in the Key of Life by itself. I, but okay, let's do this. So you've
Mhm.
got Songs in the Key of Life versus Extension of a Man. Man, I don't know. Like,
I'd have to give it to Keys of Life because that's my favorite R&B album, and that's my.
yeah, I
That's,
feel you. I
I wouldn't
understand
be
why you'd say that.
I wouldn't be mad at anybody who said Donnie because Donnie is like I said, Stevie is my favorite artist, but Donnie he's my favorite voice though. So
I remember getting the Extension of a Man album, and I'm not going to pretend that I was like on it in 1973 because I wasn't here when the album came out. It came out in
right,
June. I wasn't born till October.
right,
But so I got it a lot after that. I was like 17 at the time when I got it. And I remember I bought it and I had some friends' parents who'd heard it. I was liking like the stuff that my friends' parents were loving. But I took it home and they're like, do yourself a favor and turn the lights off and just don't play it in the car. It was a cassette. Like, don't
mm,
play it in the car. Wait till you get home. What? Trust me. Don't do it to yourself. Wait till you get home. So I got home into my music room and I turned the lights off and I sat there and just let it roll over me. And by the time I was through with it, I really felt like I'd been through something.
yeah, man. That's what Donnie does to you.
Like by the time I Know It's You was over, I was literally in tears. It was such an emotional ride.
Hmm.
And it was far too much for a 17-year-old guy to be taking.
Right,
And by the time I was through with it, I couldn't handle it. It was too
right.
much. I had to go outside. My mom was like, "Are you okay?" And I went, "No, not right now." And I went outside. I literally had to take a walk for a couple of hours just to process what had happened. It's the heaviest record I have ever known,
Right.
even heavier than Songs in the Key of Life, as much as I love that record. But
Yeah.
that for me, that's more of like a musical adventure for me.
Yeah, because that was a little bit of everything. Knocks me off my feet. I wish. Black
Knocks me off my feet though. Oh, I love that song.
as I think.
Village Ghetto Land.
Yeah, was This Is Magic?
Come on.
Where was This Is Magic? Was that Keys of Life or was that
If
the
it's
album?
magic, yes. That's
And
that's
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 another
one of my
one.
very favorite tunes of all time.
And it's so short though. That's what irritates me. Why is the song so short?
And Dorothy Ashby, my gosh,
Yeah,
just incredible on the harp. Just my gosh.
but the only thing that irritates me is that song is so short though.
But it's all it needs to be. If it's any longer, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's true.
It has to be the way it is.
And so to get a song that was
Some of his, I mean, Isn't She Lovely goes on forever.
yeah, with the baby playing in the tub and the all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah.
even at the end, the vamp, when he's just like getting it on the harmonica, it goes on
Right.
forever. And
Yeah.
I love it. I'm not mad at it at all. I hate the edit. I never listen to the edit.
Yeah.
Never. Who does that though? And
Right.
Village Ghetto Land and Saturn is so great, and then nobody ever talks about Contusion,
I was
which
just about to
is
say,
which is an instrumental thing about the car accident that he was in that just wrecked him.
right.
Like Michael Sembello has never been better. Just
Yeah.
incredible. It's, you know what it is, it sounds like Return to Forever is what
Hmm.
that's what it sounds like to me. And I've had friends tell me that they thought that that was Return to Forever. I'm like, no, it's Stevie.
Really.
Like, Stevie is just that good.
It's so crazy to look at artists now. And you look at, first, like Trey Songz is what, 35, 36? And the stuff he's talking about is still so sophomoric. You know what I mean? Like, like Chris
Yeah.
Song. And then you listen to these artists in the 70s who are like, who you don't realize it until you reflect on it. They're like 2021, talking about some serious stuff, man.
And they were exploring. But
Right.
see, here's the thing, and this is kind of its own podcast too, but a
Hmm.
lot of that has to do with the record labels and what they're willing to allow. I mean,
Yeah.
they gave, think of it, they gave both Donny Hathaway and Stevie Wonder more, obviously,
Hmm.
because he's Stevie Wonder and because he'd already had so much commercial success prior.
Right.
But I mean, they let both of these artists loose to do whatever it is that they wanted. And if you
Hmm.
listen to their output at that point, and really from then forward for Stevie, you know it's true. They
Hmm.
let them do whatever they wanted. We are now living in a time, and have been for at least the last 20 years, where record labels don't allow that. They simply don't allow for that level of exploration.
Yeah, and
They're
that's true.
really only Jacob Collier at this point can get away with that. Nobody
And the
else
problem
can.
and the problem is he's not really in the forefront of R&B like that, unfortunately. So people aren't going to really
Yeah.
yeah. And another thing too about the 70s, or even prior to the 70s, I feel like record labels were more patient with artists. Like,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
and so just, yeah, so I can imagine now what's going on now. All these artists that are actually talented that just aren't getting done because their first album doesn't do well because it wasn't marketed
Yeah.
right for whatever reason. You know what I mean? So
I'm not really sure we have Stevie, honestly.
yeah, because
Um,
he signed in what, 1960 with,
I think it was, yeah. Yeah, it was
yeah, with the
60,
Tamla label,
61 or something, I believe.
and Fingertips was what, 63, 64?
I'm cheating. Yeah, because his first record was the Little Jazz. I'm not looking at this. I really do know this. The
Yeah.
first record was the Jazz Soul of
That was just
Versuz.
harmonica. That was a harmonica.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? When is this a good idea? It's great. No
You know what it
shade.
was though? This is what, late 50s, early 60s. So that's the little Walter influence. Obviously, that's what it
Oh,
was.
clearly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then of course there was the Ray record that he did.
Right. Right. And
But he didn't.
that was Motown before it really became Motown. You know. So.
But he ain't hit right away. Like those first two records. Well, no,
Right.
that's not true. Fingertips was on that first record, so that kind of did.
That was
But
what,
really, not
63?
much else did on that
Okay.
record. It kind
Yeah.
of didn't really come together like that. And then certainly on the second record, you know. So I'm not sure we have Stevie the way that we ended up with him.
And that's crazy to think about. That's really crazy.
It's ridiculous. And then and we don't have Donny Hathaway at all, because Donny didn't sell records, like really ever, until
Right.
Live sold a bit.
Right.
And then of course the duets, and but the
Mhm.
duets themselves probably existed also because of record company pressure, because he wasn't
Right.
selling records on Atco. And so
Right.
they were like, we need to justify your existence here. You know Roberta, don't you? Let's go. And then
Right.
they went in and did that record. And Where Is the Love, for as little as I like it,
Mhm.
just for as little sense as it makes as a duet, it did work, and it did
It
cross him
yeah.
over and become a giant hit. All of his, that's another thing that's had to just drive him nuts. All of his giant hits were duets. He
Right.
had no giant hits on his own, none.
Unfortunately, yeah.
People just wanted the duets. It had to drive him completely insane. I mean, think of somebody like him, and all you're listening to are the duets. Really?
Yeah, you're
Like,
missing out on a lot. You're missing out on
you
a
really
scratching the
are.
surface. Right.
There's a fully formed artist there, and y'all just missed it. Like,
Yeah.
so between the two of them, if we're just looking at musical merit and leaving commercial success behind,
Mhm.
man, I don't know. I don't know who takes that, but it'd be
Yeah.
fun to watch.
Yes, it would. It would.
And the conversation between the two of them
right.
would be fun if
Yeah.
it could ever have been a thing.
Right.
But the two of them together, I think, that would be an amazing Versus. And I would watch it. I would record it. I would paper the walls with it. Like, it would be the most incredible thing. So I would absolutely love that.